Supreme Court today reinstated Alok Verma as the director of the CBI. The Supreme Court has said that the final decision on Verma's fate will be taken by a select committee, which is led by the Prime Minister, which has to meet in a week after the Central Vigilance Commission submits its report on corruption charges against Verma. Verma's tenure, meanwhile, comes to an end on January 31st, and pending this final decision, he can't take any major moves or decisions within the CBI. This is being seen as a big blow to the government's action of sending Verma on leave in a midnight decision. But what happens next is equally important. To speak on this, I'm joined now by Shantonu Sen, former Joint Director at the CBI and Senior Advocate Satish Maneshinde. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for speaking with us here at Bloomberg Quint. Mr. Sen, you and I have spoken in the past about this case and seen how it's unfolded. Today, after Alok Verma has been reinstated, has he been vindicated in his position, or has it been dampened to some extent by the fact that he can't really resume with full powers intact?
The Supreme Court has viewed this case not Alok Verma per se. I think it has viewed this case as the institution's independence. Supreme Court has observed that a CBI director appointed for 2 years should only be transferred, removed by the appointing authority. However, Supreme Court has not considered the order so bad that it has not stayed the order when it first heard it. It conceded that the CBC had superintendents. It allowed the CBC to complete its inquiry in 14 days. It got hold of the inquiry. It has read that inquiry report. It has conceded that the charges are serious. And it has also established that the CBI, having a director with a tenure appointed by a committee, has some independence, and the decision to transfer, remove, etc. should only be taken by the committee. It has also conceded that the CBC has a right to make inquiry against the director CBI because it is the superintending authority, and that complaint should be studied not by the government but by the committee. The mistake made, according to Supreme Court, is the government decided to take action on that report. Supreme Court has said, no, the government can't take action. The committee should take action. So, CBI's independence as an institution has been upheld, and this will apply to all other tenure appointments, I'm sure. It's a good thing for the independence of institutions, which has been the subject of some comments these days.
Mr. Maneshinde, how do you look at this? Because the select committee, which has to finally decide, comprises of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. Since the Chief Justice of India has heard this case, can he continue to be part of that process which the select committee has to go through? And how will this move further?
Well, the select committee, which was headed by the Chief Justice of India and 2 other people, will obviously conduct the proceedings henceforth, because the Supreme Court has said that within 1 week from the date of the judgment, the committee should be, summoned to meet, and a date should be fixed within that period. And by this, any lay-thinking person could understand that this is not a time for Mr. Verma to celebrate. All along, I have seen on the electronic media as well as the TV that the government is being investigated for the action that it took as a midnight drama. What has that the Supreme Court has still not disposed of the allegations which are being conducted, which were being investigated by the CBC, and at the time when the matter was heard in the Supreme Court called upon Verma to give explanation in the CD cover. And I don't think the Supreme Court has said anything on those allegations. They are supposed to be investigated and decided upon by the committee. The committee consists of the Chief Justice who heard the matter. Merely because he heard the matter there is no bar on him sitting in the committee because he has not decided on the merits of those allegations. And the committee, consisting of the Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India, and the leader of opposition or the leader of the largest party, cannot be substituted by any other person. So the law is very clear that that committee alone would investigate into those allegations, and if there is any action being taken, that will be taken up by that committee, or it will be suggested by the committee as to what the government should act upon. Merely because the Chief Justice heard the matter, he is not debarred. There is no conflict of interest.
Absolutely. The other question, Mr. Shantonu Sen, is now what happens to Alok Verma? His tenure ends on the 31st of, this month. Moreover, he has sat out per se for over 75 days because the midnight order took place on October 23rd. Considering the Supreme Court has upheld that he has a fixed tenure of 2 years, would there be a case for adjusting this or extending his last date? And what about the fact that he can't really make any key decisions?
All that I think the committee will go into. Here Alok Verma really is not the issue. It is the director CBI. And we must distinguish between director CBI and Alok Verma here. For instance, if this thing had happened within a month of the director being appointed, would these questions come about? His superannuation, etc., would not be an issue. Therefore, the committee can decide and said that he has not had a full tenure, so we give him 3 months extension. That is if they hold that the charges against him are not serious. Suppose the committee decides the charges are serious, then the committee can say he should be inquired into. So all that we should leave to the committee. The most important thing is the Supreme Court has not found the order of the government atrocious or bad. Then it would have stayed the order straight away. Supreme Court has conceded that the government had a right to make an inquiry. The CBC was the competent authority to make the inquiry. Where the Supreme Court disagrees with the government is that it tells the government, you are no authority to look into this report and take action on his leave, etc. That should have been done by the committee. However, we are correcting it. We are reappointing him, but we are also not giving him powers to function as director CBI because there are serious charges against him. So he is virtually on leave, though he will be sitting in the director's chair and not at his home, but virtually without powers. What is the director CBI? He will only take up matters which come to him in routine. He will not initiate anything. So you see, this is a matter where the director CBI's post has been upheld as one which cannot be interfered with by anybody except the committee. And it is also set right that the director is acting within his powers and there are no allegations against him. Nothing can be done by anybody except the committee. It's a good thing which has happened. And if the government erred in removing him, the government has been told about it. And the government will in future, I'm sure, not remove anybody who has been appointed for a tenure without consulting the appointing authority.
That was the key bone of contention, wasn't it, Mr. Maneshinde? And which is why when you speak about the narrative all through the day on the Supreme Court order, the fact is that the government's powers to move out Alok Verma in the middle of the night was the key question. And in that sense, to that extent, they have been proven wrong. They're going to need to explain why they took these actions, knowing the rules fully well.
Well, the key question was whether the investigation conducted by the CBC had any merits in it. Otherwise, the Supreme Court would not have called upon Verma to give a point-by-point reply to it in a seal cover, which was not shared with anybody, including the Attorney General. The said seal cover is only lying with the court. So once the court has taken into consideration those allegations, and found that there are quite a few startling points for it to sit in the committee and inquire into it and take a decision on it within a week's time before the retirement date of Mr. Verma, it gains total significance. It's a setback for the government that the Supreme Court struck down its action of going away that person that night, including the special director. But what one has to see is the way the Supreme Court has clipped the powers and the wings of Verma by directing him not to take any policy decisions means he is merely a figurehead of the CBI for the next 1 week, and we will know the result of it before he retires, whether he's going to honorably retire or whether he's going to face any action and then face the consequences, or be that as it may, his reply, which has been filed at the Supreme Court, he will be forwarded to the committee, and then it will be deliberated upon. Apart from the fact that CVC action of investigation was not stayed by the Supreme Court during the entire hearing. Verma was asked to appear before the CVC and give his replies and cooperate with the investigation. So though that part of investigation of the CBI has not been stayed at all.
It is definitely a decision which both sides can walk away from, looking at some positives and some setbacks as well. The big question here was the protection of institutions in India, and I think that has been clear to some extent. Thank you so much, Satish Maneshinde and Shantonu Sen, for joining us today.